I'm joined by George Conway, who just launched the Anti-Psychopath Pact. George, I have to ask you at the top, do you think that now that Kamala Harris is top of the ticket, the contrast that now exists will show that Donald Trump is even more of a psychopath?
Absolutely. I do think that. I think it was most propitious timing. I think this needed to be done no matter who the Democratic nominee was, for the simple reason that Donald Trump has been getting basically this easy pass double standard on his behavior because we've seen so much of it and it's basically been normalized, even though it's completely bizarre. And we almost kind of don't bat an eyelash at him talking about sharks and electrocution and Hannibal Lecter. I mean, he's been doing crazy stuff like that for years. So he has this weird advantage, and that's part of the advantage. The other part of the advantage is that people are afraid to talk about mental health issues of any sort, lest they give offense or they don't want to stigmatize people. But I mean, this is just so different. I mean, this is the man, the question, this is the question of the mental stability of somebody who would have control of the second largest nuclear arsenal on the planet. I mean, this is just, you just can't look at it the same way.
As I was hanging out with a buddy who said, the thing about Donald Trump is he's probably the single worst person in the entire country to have that job. He is uniquely the single worst because of the malignant
Right.
narcissism and sociopathic behavior. And as we were driving, he said, we were in the car together and he was like, you see that person, they'd be way better presidents than Donald Trump because they would take people's advice and not behave the way he does. I thought it was an
Right.
interesting framework.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, and I the way I go through that is, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a mental health professional, I'm not qualified to diagnose people, but I can read and I can observe people. And if you take the various diagnostic criteria for antisocial personality disorder, which is basically sociopathy, you don't have to say, oh, he meets all of these. He's a sociopath. I, Dr. Conway, can declare that. No, you don't even have to do that. Okay? You don't have to pretend you're a doctor. All you have to do is look at the list and say, are these qualities, any of them, qualities that you want to see in a president of the United States? And the answer is, oh, hell no. Any combination of them. And that's exactly the same point that your friend was just making.
One of the things you did is you looked at the DSM-5, which is how mental health professionals, though, diagnose serious personality disorders. And you went through each one and you said, check, 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 check. He fits literally each and every one of these issues. And it's serious stuff when it comes to making these types of, life or death decisions over our lives. So how important was the DSM-5 in your analysis, and how much should people be paying attention to that?
Well, I mean, it's always been important to me. I mean, partly there's an appeal to me because I'm a lawyer and we like to have things like nice lists of things to check off. But the first time I ever became aware of the DSM criteria was I read an article in Rolling Stone in 2017 that basically said, is the explanation for Donald Trump that he has narcissistic personality disorder? And I read that and I said, oh my goodness, he just checks every box. And so I started doing more reading. And it turns out he's also a sociopath, which basically makes him a malignant narcissist, which basically makes him the kind of person who would be a cult leader or a dictator. I mean, these are bad, bad, bad qualities. And that's exactly, I think that one of the things that has happened over the past several years is we haven't really focused on his bad qualities as a list and in terms of their of how they fit in with these psychiatric disorders. He's the worst of the worst. And all you have to do is once you go through the list of those qualities, you realize he's just somebody you don't want entrusted with any aspect of your life.
Look, there seems to be a renewed energy in the pro-democracy community right now. $50 million raised in a 24-hour period. By the end of today, that number can be as high as 100 million, perhaps even more than 100 million, setting records. Donald Trump up all night and then into the early hours of the morning, post. And as I've always said, if anybody behaved like this and just posted on any topic, whether it was, sports or whatever their hobby was, bird watching, whatever, you'd be like, hey, that's really weird behavior. But he's up there.
It's weird behavior and it doesn't even make any sense. He's still tweeting about Joe Biden. Say, hey, guy, Biden's gone. He's not your problem anymore. And he can't let it go.
This was his post last night. Who's running our country right now? It's not Crooked Joe. He has no idea where he is. If he can't run for office, he can't run our country. And the other one, my debate with Crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in history, was slated to broadcast on fake news, ABC, home of George Slopadopoulous sometime in September. Now that Joe has not surprisingly quit the race, I think the debate with whomever the radical left Democrats chose should be held on Fox News rather than the very biased ABC. Thank you, DJT. You think he's afraid of this debate with Kamala? Do you think this adds an extra?
Yeah, no, I think it adds a great deal of uncertainty to him. They had a specific game plan for dealing with Joe Biden, and I think one of the ways that they tamped him down to some extent was to say, listen, we got this great plan, we got this perfect plan, just stick to the plan. And sometimes you can persuade him to behave not normally, but he can tone it down for periods of time. That's what happened during, for example, the first impeachment trial. And I think they had him told, like, we got this plan to deal with Joe Biden. You don't have to do anything. It's easy. You don't have to go to any of the debates for the primaries. It's all fine. It's all taken care of. And that's how they calm him down. Now the plan is kaboom. They can't tell him what to do. He knows they don't know what they are trying to do. And I think he's panicking. Absolutely.
Here's a meme that's been circulating. The mind of a toddler, the Republican National Convention. You have Donald Trump falling asleep the way you observed him fall asleep all the time during the trial where he was convicted of 34 separate felony counts. When his son's speaking, he's falling asleep the whole time. Then you have Hulk Hogan giving one of the kind of prime spots, one of the big speeches at the Republican National Convention is Hulk Hogan ripping off his shirt, George, and he goes, "Oh, I'm the Hulkster, and if you don't vote for Trump, I'm coming to get you." And he smiles and he claps at that. And to me, that photo right there, watching that, is kind of the anti-psychopath pack in a nutshell, though, right?
Absolutely. It's sad and pathetic. I mean, it is sad and pathetic. This used to be an actual political party. It used to be the party of Lincoln. It was the grand old party. It had some dignity, and now it's just a personality cult to a guy with personality disorders. It's just such an embarrassment. And what kills me about it is that how many people are just going along with this? I mean, how can you not hang your head in shame after watching that spectacle if you call yourself a Republican or ever have called yourself a Republican? I don't know. I guess our standards have just dropped beneath the floor.
What do you think? I mean, you know some of these people. I mean, you knew them
thought
before,
I did.
And so when they do that, I mean, what do you think is behind it?
I just think it's just they've fallen into what psychologists or sociologists would call a malignant normality. Things that would not have been normal, would not have been reasonable, would not have been acceptable 10 or 15 years ago, they've gotten used to. And that's the corrupting influence of Donald Trump. Now, that said, I mean, it's much as we like to blame Trump for things, it's like there had to be a receptive audience to it. So there's plenty of blame to go around. But he created this permission structure for people to be their very worst selves, and that's what we're seeing, or their most least serious selves, and that's what we saw at the Republican National Convention.
Let's show everybody the ad that was just released by the Anti-Psychopath PAC. Take a look at it. Let's press play.
Donald Trump has never, ever been right in the head.
The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He's a wonderful man. An enormous, really an enormous. We got up! And then they announced there was no buys, no. We've endorsed JP, right?
J.D. Mandel take a look at the oranges of the investigation.
Venezuela,
If you have a windmill anywhere near your house, they say the noise causes cancer. I know more about wind than you do.
I don't know what I said.
Joe Biden won against Barack Hussein Obama. They have voter ID. They have ID on everything. You buy a loaf of bread, you have ID. The first non-incumbent. The kidney has a very special place in the heart.
We appreciate it very much, Tim Apple.
People are flushing toilets 10 times, 15 times, as opposed to one injection inside or almost a cleaner. That an illegal one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Learn more at psychopac.org.
I immediately went to psychopac.org, and this appeals to me. You know, we have our whole team here at the MeidasTouch Network from ASIN, clipping these things, and I watch every one of those events, and my thing after is, I'm like, yes, they're like, this isn't even political. This is just weird and not normal.
Oh, absolutely. And you guys have been pointing it out really, really well for quite a while. So maybe we can work out a deal where we can borrow some of your stuff and repurpose it. And we got to get. This is the whole point about the guy. The guy's nuts.
So where do we go
it's
from
just not
here?
that hard.
Where do we go from here? Seems obvious that Vice President Kamala Harris, the presumptive Democratic nominee, the endorsements are all kind of lining up. We got the convention pretty soon. Where do you think we go from here first? And then, kind of as a strategist, what do you suggest?
Well, look, I mean, I've always thought this election was relatively simple. 2016, Trump won because Hillary became the issue. Somehow they got Trump to read off a teleprompter for a few weeks at the end. 2020, Trump was the incumbent. He was the issue because of his behavior, because of Clorox, because of everything. And what happens again this year is whoever becomes the issue loses. And the problem that we were having over the last 3 or 4 weeks was that Joe Biden was becoming the issue when Donald Trump has to be the issue. And now Donald Trump isn't going to be able to avoid being the issue. I think his campaign has been very wisely trying to keep him under wraps as much as possible, which is hard to do because of his narcissism, and you can't tell him, guys, you're better off if nobody sees you. So that's what they did during the primary, and then during the trial in New York actually enabled him to stay off the radar screen. But now he's back on the radar screen, and now people can see him, people can judge him. They saw him Thursday night. He had a good night at the debate. Now he's the old man in the race. Now, after having raised the issue of cognitive decline, he's the only one left who that argument applies to. And so he's got a big problem. And the other thing is now that the Democrats have a nominee and are united behind a nominee, this is the time to go right back on offense. This is the way that Trump loses. Trump loses if he is the issue. And the other thing, Trump helps us on that because Trump is a narcissist and he can't help but make himself the issue. He wants to be the issue. He wants to be the center of attention. And that, in the end, I think, is what would defeat him.
Psychopac.org is the website. Everybody check it out. George Conway, thanks as always, man. Hope you come back. I want to do more of these.
Absolutely, we should.
Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 3 million subscribers. Thanks to your support. Let's get there this month. Have a good one.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.